Welcome to Tell Me Something I Don't Know Short Sale webinar series. Today's topic is, what about promissory notes and deficiency judgments with my short sale? My name is Robin Speronis, and I'll be moderating this webinar today. Our presenter is Jason Holtz, attorney at law.
My name is Jason Holtz. I am an attorney in Fort Myers, Florida. I'm with the law office of Kevin Jersinski. We do real estate litigation, real estate transactions, and business litigation. We've been actively involved in foreclosure representation for the last 4+ years, handling the cases of many clients in both residential and commercial foreclosure situations involving loan workouts, restructures, foreclosures, deed in lieu of foreclosure, settlements for terms of stipulated foreclosures with deficiency workouts, as well as a considerable amount of short sale activity in negotiating terms of short sale approval and terms of deficiency satisfaction from the short sale proceeds. Prior to work with this office, I was senior attorney for the Florida Department of Business Professional Regulation Real Estate Division in Orlando, representing the department with the Florida Real Estate Commission on both civil real estate issues as well as real estate licensure issues. And that's my background. What I'd like to do is a little bit of an introduction prior to taking questions. One of the things that I learned when I was in law school and beginning to practice law was that about 80% of arguments are not really about disputes of law. In fact, they're about definitions. And if you can agree on a set of definitions, you probably can agree to everything else that relates to it. So because we're going to be talking about several loan documents in the course of answering questions today in talking about short sales, I want to go over some of those loan documents so that when I use them, we all have a shared understanding of what I'm referring to. Starting with the mortgage, frequently we use mortgage as sort of a generic term for the entire loan package that provides the purchase money for the transaction. But when I'm talking about short sales, it's important to think that when I say mortgage, I'm referring specifically to the security agreement, and that I'm using that term separately from the promissory note, so that in a typical transaction, I'll say residential transaction, we would have two loan documents: a promissory note, which is the document in which the borrower promises to repay the certain sum of money that's being borrowed, and the mortgage, which provides that in the event of a default of the promissory note, that the bank has a security interest that they can foreclose to take title to the property. So when I say mortgage, I'm referring specifically to that security interest, and when I say the note or the promissory note, it's specifically that promise to repay. Sometimes, even in residential transactions, you will also encounter a personal guarantee, and this could be in a situation where maybe you have a trust or an LLC that's acting as the borrower, and in that case, the lender is going to want to see the personal guarantee of an individual that is supporting that. So if I talk about a guarantee, then it would be a personal guarantee. Also, when I talk about deficiency, and that's one of the topics for the presentation, Florida law case law defines deficiency as the difference between the fair market value of the property, and by fair market value I mean what a normally motivated buyer and a normally motivated seller would agree to sell the property for in an arm's length transaction at that time, and without being compelled by any unusual circumstances such as duress. That would be a deficiency. regard to short sale approval. And when I use these terms, I want to make sure that we have a specific meaning attached to them. There's going to be in order for a short sale to take place, a minimum of one agreement has to be reached with the bank, and that is for a release of their lien. So that would be a release of their mortgage, a release of lien, partial release of the mortgage if it was a mortgage that covered multiple properties. That's the minimum that has to occur. Now, there could also be a release of lien with some satisfaction of the promissory note. So you could get a release of lien and a full satisfaction of the amount owed, or they could phrase that as a release of lien with a deficiency waiver. And the third form of an approval would be a release of lien with some contribution toward a satisfaction of the deficiency. We're also going to talk about deficiency enforcement. That's when I consult with clients in regard to foreclosure, and I talk about the use of a short sale as a tool towards resolving the foreclosure. The question becomes, if there's a deficiency, what can the bank do? And the answer is that there are collections options. Virtually all collections start with informal efforts, and by informal I mean a telephone call or a letter indicating that an amount is still owed to the bank, and usually providing a 1-800 number for the borrower to contact to make arrangements for payment. If informal collections don't come up with some resolution, the lender can do one of two things. Depending upon how they pursued their foreclosure, they might end up in court asking the judge to enter a deficiency judgment. And that would be that the lawyer would show up with an appraisal report indicating a market value at the time of foreclosure, and would use that to get a monetary judgment against the borrower for the difference between the monetary judgment stated in the foreclosure and the fair market appraisal value of the property at the time that they appear for a deficiency judgment. Alternately, banks can start a whole new action based on the promissory note. And this gets back to the first thing that I discussed, which is that you want to really think of that promissory note as a separate loan document from the mortgage. The mortgage can be resolved several ways: short sale, foreclosure. The promissory note is a separate enforceable agreement, and a borrower could be served with a new lawsuit for enforcement of a promissory note. So that's sort of the third way that collection activity can take place on a deficiency amount owed during a foreclosure or after a short sale. With that as a bit of background on the terms that I'm going to use, I'd be happy to start by entertaining some questions. I'm sure that everyone that is attending has several questions that